Hello and welcome, subscribers. And if you're not a subscriber, then please consider becoming one, because I do these kind of one-off videos like this. I am a doctor, but I pretty much will do a video on anything that I've sort of taken a deep dive on and felt like there's knowledge that needs to be spread. And this is basically a book review video. It is about finances and why I think that everyone should read this book. It's so important to your financial future and is sort of a primer for all of that, and why it's important to understand sort of the history of money, why money becomes money and how that value is placed on them, why it works, how it works, as well as basically where everything is going. The current situation is that the US dollar is in for a pretty big disruption in the near future. And so stick with me and let's just jump straight into it. The book I'll be talking about today and reviewing is a book called Bitcoin, Hard Money You Can't Mess With. And it's by my boy Jason Williams. He is someone I know personally, great guy, one of the hardest workers, smartest people I know, who always means well. I've known him for several years. This is not a paid sponsorship or anything like that, although I guess he did give me the book, so there is that. And before you kind of click off and say, oh my God, it's Bitcoin, I feel like there's always two camps of people whenever you mention the word Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. You have those that are like, oh, whatever, it's magic internet money and it's too complicated, I don't understand it, it's a total myth, like seeing a unicorn or something like that, and they're not interested. And then you have the other camp, which is like, woohoo, Bitcoin, sell your dog, your cat, your goldfish, and just put all your money into Bitcoin. Like most things in life, I tend to kind of ride the middle of it. I started to become interested in Bitcoin mainly because actually of Jason, talking to him, as well as Anthony Pompliano, who's also big in the space. Like most people, it kind of started as a spark for me. It just kind of slowly grew over time as I kind of kept learning more and more about it over time. In the very beginning, I was just like, what the heck is this thing? And, and then one day it's like a light bulb just kind of turns on and you start realizing what Bitcoin truly is and the real potential of it. And the book honestly isn't even really just focused on Bitcoin, although he does talk about it, the evolution of Bitcoin. What I really appreciate and what caught me off guard about this book was how easy of a read it was. I read it in 2 sittings and it's just really interesting to learn about the history of money. It's not a topic I ever thought about researching. Whoever thinks to read about the history of money, I don't know, at least I didn't, maybe you did. But anyway, it's really, really cool how he basically walks you through the history of money and the cycles of basically money throughout time, what gives money its value. And I thought one funny thing was that he basically compares money, or talks about money in comparison to ramen noodles. I didn't know this because I've never been to prison, but in prison, apparently ramen noodles is a form of currency. If you have a lot of ramen noodles, then you're sort of awesome and you can use it to trade for almost anything that you need. So he kind of uses that as an example to basically go over what puts value on something to make it currency. It's a real fascinating take on it. What I think Jason has really accomplished with this book, which is unlike anything that I've actually read yet in regards to talking about Bitcoin, is that he broke it down to such an easy format to understand what Bitcoin is and basically what it means. And what I can do here is read an excerpt out of the book for you. So he goes on to say it's so much bigger than that. It's a whole new form of money, a new financial system, a parallel universe that lets you escape the broken world around you. It's a scarce asset slowly sucking up value from all the infinite currencies around it. A new financial system that can't be controlled or manipulated by politics or human greed. It's a fair and transparent money for a divided world. This isn't a video where I'm going to dive into and explain it all to you. This is mainly just kind of giving you a primer, and you guys have to do the research on your own in regards to all this. There's no way I could explain all this to you in one video, and that's why I'm telling you to go and just read the book, because I can't explain it better than he has, and he's explained it better than anyone that I've met yet. So not only is he able to explain Bitcoin in a very easy manner where anyone can understand it, but he also creates a really compelling argument as to why Bitcoin in the future is going to possibly be worth many, many multiples of what it is now over time. And he talks about how, with each cycle of Bitcoin, and for those of you who don't know, there's also a halving of of the Bitcoin every 4 years, meaning that half as many Bitcoins are being produced. And it also creates a cycle. Those cycles end up being pretty volatile, pretty big highs and pretty big lows. And they're very emotional to kind of ride through. So this is not for the faint of heart in regards to investing. And it's more of whether or not you will develop the conviction to ride this out long term. It's sort of similar to my belief in Tesla, which those of you that know, based on my Tesla video that I did, I'm a huge bull on. And it's just a matter of how strong your conviction is in any particular investment and whether or not you don't care so much about the short-term volatility, but keeping your eye more on the long-term investment opportunity and what it has the potential to ultimately become. And he sets all this kind of in a backdrop of the 2008 recession and financial crisis, along with the most recent one, 2020. How basically the federal government's money machine just been constantly cranking out money and printing money like crazy, and how historically it doesn't work out. For this year, 2021, the United States debt ratio would, for the first time, surpass our GDP. So, that's like you getting up and going to work, and no matter how much you work, you're not bringing in enough money to cover your cost of living. This is going to ultimately have an effect on things like inflation, which historically should be around like maybe 2-3%, somewhere around there. But he talks about this in regards to 2020 and how basically the cost of food has gone up by 4.6%, the cost of healthcare by 5%, and the cost of rent by 3%. And in the last couple of decades, the cost of a house has actually doubled. And all of this is sort of in the setting of where if you're invested in, say, the stock market and you made some good investments, or the real estate, then you've stood to do possibly pretty well and beat the inflation. But for the lower middle class on down, if you look at the wages or income that they have collected over time, it's pretty much been a flat line the entire time, as opposed to anyone above that threshold for take-home income. And so this is where you're just hearing more and more where the rich are becoming richer and the poor are becoming poorer, because the cost of living has gone up substantially and a lot of wages have basically stayed stagnant, especially if people are not learning to invest and do all these other things. But even those situations, right, obviously there's risk involved in all of that too, and people can and have lost their shirt overnight doing investments. So, but getting back to the different cycles that Bitcoin kind of goes through, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, it's kind of like being a Tesla investor. It's also extremely volatile with big highs and big lows, and with each volatility, it's like a tide that washes in and washes out. And when the tide washes out, it leaves behind sort of a stronger foundation in regards to people that are mining Bitcoin as well as the people that are investing in Bitcoin. And so it kind of gets rid of the more speculative investors, and the people that are true believers and have a very strong conviction buy into it more and more over time. A lot of companies or big corporations are jumping into this now. Big companies like MicroStrategy, where he's put in, I think it was $420 million of his reserve money into Bitcoin, as well as companies like PayPal and Square jumping in. And it has started something where once big companies like this start jumping in, more and more will over time. And just as sort of a comment about being kind of self-motivated and taking the initiative to basically go out and learn about investing in different financial vehicles and things like that. Just as a general concept, I always encourage people that in this information age that we live in with the internet, there really is an excuse not to jump online and really learn about anything that you want to learn about. And I think in this day and age, especially if you're someone that has a family, is looking to have a family down the road, it's so important because, financial security obviously will buy you a stability in life and a lot of headaches, right? It may not buy you happiness, but it can prevent a divorce. I think last I saw, half of divorces, they mentioned finances as being a major reason as to a cause of tension that sort of led to the divorce. And so it is something that's extremely important. And also because in the old days, you could work a 9-to-5 job and you can get by. You can have one person working and one person stay at home, but then wages did not meet the cost of living. So then guess what? Both parents are out working. And now even though both parents are working in many circumstances, it's still not enough to put food on the table and a roof over their head and clothing on their backs as well as their children's. And so it's so important to learn all these different vehicles and to become educated about investing and things like that. And I know it's very intimidating initially, but as with everything else, all about the small steps. No one's expecting you to understand the stock market overnight or to understand real estate overnight or Bitcoin overnight, but it's a matter of whether or not you're going to kind of start somewhere and just kind of build on that knowledge over time. So when I was reading the book, a couple of the chapters that really stood out to me were chapters 20 and 21. And if after reading those two chapters, you are not concerned about just keeping your money, basically fiat currency tied up in a bank account, then I don't know what's going to cause you to worry about it. And I also like the fact that in the book, he addresses a lot of the common fears and questions that a lot of people have once they're starting to learn a bit more about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin in particular. And one of them being what happens if big government steps in and creates their own cryptocurrency, or big tech steps in like Facebook did. Those entities, once they step in, it sort of goes against what the mantra or the culture of Bitcoin is really about. Bitcoin is really about having a currency that, as the book says, that no one can mess with. And so it's essentially taking any type of centralized entity out of the picture that controls the currency, and it gives the power back to the people. You know, when you have a government agency or large tech companies controlling a cryptocurrency and all of your finances and transactions basically go through them. Well, in the book, he mentions how maybe you go jaywalking and basically they find you and they lock up your account for a little while. And especially if you live in a country that has very heavy surveillance and things like that. And so in that setting, if people are given a choice, it's a no-brainer that people will sort of gravitate towards Bitcoin over some type of centralized controlled cryptocurrency. That is sort of the attractiveness of Bitcoin. And Bitcoin did start as sort of along the Silk Road. Some of you may have heard of that, where it was just kind of shady dealings and people were using it to buy all kinds of shady stuff on the black market. But it sort of has evolved from that all this time into a very respectable way to kind of hedge your bets against inflation and as a way to store currency that is hard currency. But having said all of that, each younger generation kind of gets it a little bit more in regards to cryptocurrency or Bitcoin in general. So he mentioned one study done in 2018 where they polled a bunch of teenagers about what they want for Christmas. And the majority of them said that they wanted Fortnite virtual money. So for those who don't know, Fortnite is a really fun video game. It's done by Epic Games, actually here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And you can, have virtual money there that you buy with real money, and you can buy all these different outfits and weapons and things like that to kind of show off to your friends. And that is what they wanted the most. And so, their mindset is already there. And with each younger generation, it's going to go more and more towards that. And I foresee in the next 5 to 10 years that a lot of transactions will be done in cryptocurrency, and namely in Bitcoin. And a lot of, kind of long-term savings will be held in Bitcoin, kind of like how people buy gold and store the value in that type of hard currency. And I know that, even after talking about all of this, that it is somewhat hard for still some of you watching this to be like, man, I am not putting money in that. And by all means, you shouldn't. I'm a doctor. I'm not a financial advisor. All I can tell you is that, this channel is for entertainment and educational purposes. And so it's more of trying to create that spark so that, you will feel compelled to go out and sort of educate yourself about these different topics that I end up covering that seem kind of random. And by the way, if you're going to start a YouTube channel, you definitely don't want to do it the way that I'm doing. If you do all the research before starting a channel, they advise you to stick to one particular niche topic that a lot of people will find interesting. And, I did that a little bit with the CBD and all that, but I have decided that with the amount of time and effort and energy that it takes to make these videos, I got to do videos that really interest me and that just involve what I'm researching at the moment. And so I promise you guys that my videos, although they are random, they're topics that I actually research quite heavily. Whenever I do that homework and that research, I'm just going to create a video and put it out here for you guys. But I will say also that right before I read Jason's book, I ended up reading this book, The Storm, I always say it backwards, The Storm Before the Calm. And it's by George Friedman, who wrote an awesome book. And actually that is the same author as the book that you guys always hear me quoting on here, The Next 100 Years. And I mean, all three of these books are awesome. So if you guys need reading material, I'll put a link down below for all these books. I thought it was a little eerie, and I still kind of get goosebumps just kind of thinking about it, that both of them talk, I mean, Jason focuses a bit more about sort of the economical side of it, but he touches on the socio-political aspects as well that we are currently seeing in the United States. Well, not even just in the United States, but around the world. And Thomas Friedman really takes a deep dive into it. And having read both those books back to back, just kind of coincidentally, it's enough to keep you up at night. Thomas Friedman's book kind of, maybe I'll do a video review just on his book too, but he talks about how the 2020s to 2030s are going to be a tough time because the United States is going through another cycle right now. You know, he does a great job about staying politically neutral and just sticking to the facts, and that's another book that I would highly suggest checking out as well. I think with everything that's going on, now is a really important time for anyone out there to start learning about all these alternative methods of, you know, storing your hard-earned money and figuring out these different investment vehicles, and just really start educating yourself about all this, because society, politically, you know, economically, we're living through some really turbulent times right now. And so only by educating yourself about all your options will you be able to hedge your bet moving forward in the future to be as prepared as possible. So I'm just going to wrap it up here. I could talk about this for a very long time, but I feel like my videos are already long enough. So, you know, that's the book. So feel free to check it out if you guys found this educational. I hope you guys enjoyed this. You know, let me know if you guys want me to do more book reviews and things like that, or if this was helpful. You know, please put a comment down below and let me know. As always, please like and subscribe and hit the notification bell. So till next time, take care, stay safe. Bye-bye. Pura Vida.